Okay, Jyoti?
Yeah. So, can I have multiple Spring configuration files? And uh, if yes, should I be just mentioning it in web.xml?
That's a good point. So can I have more than one Spring config XML? You can definitely have more than one Spring config XML. Okay. And then should I be putting all of them in web.xml? Web.xml also, in your web.xml, you have your dispatcher servlet, right?
Yes,
By
and
convention, sorry, go ahead.
mhm. No,
By,
go ahead, please.
by convention, the dispatcher servlet looks for your your servlet name dash servlet.xml, right?
Correct.
So you have two approaches here. One, through init parameters, you can override and provide as many Spring config XMLs as you want dispatcher servlet to load from. If you have a.xml, b.xml, c.xml, and d.xml, you can specify all of them here as your init parameter, init params. You are
Okay,
now
so
going
it comes under the context configuration location.
context configure. Yes, 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 yes.
Is that okay?
Do you have init param here? Yes. So you specify now through init param. Okay, it expects a specific param name. I think it's called context config location or something.
Yeah, yeah. Yes, yes.
So context config location or locations. Don't quote me on this name though. Okay. So here now you specify all of these locations of your. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm not sharing it. Okay.
Venkat, I can see. Oh yeah, it's fine.
Yes, yes, yes. Sorry. I mean, I'm
I can see now.
not writing much anyway. So
No problem,
in the
sir.
dispatcher servlet, so what I'm saying is that there is an init param. So in init param, I didn't remember any of this. I just did. Don't think that I remember all of this. Nope. I just did like this. Init param, and then param name. Okay, like this. So they ask you to specify this parameter name with your now locations. Slash
Hmm.
webinf slash a.xml comma slash webinf slash b.xml comma like that. So you can have all these XMLs and then your dispatcher servlet will load them. That is one way to do it.
Hmm.
Understood, Jyoti?
Yeah, got it.
Now, there is a second way and most prominent way. Your dispatcher servlet, we all day to day on a day to day basis, I'm telling you most practical one, the one I'm using right now. What we do is we do it this way. We use the convention, whatever your servlet name dash servlet.xml. Okay. But here we will keep this XML only for MVC configurations, meaning I'll provide my view resolvers, I'll provide my handler mappings if I required. Um, I will provide my message resources for MVC, all the MVC, Spring MVC stuff, I'll put it here. But the core, the actual bean definitions and core domain model, right? That one I'll put it in a different XML. I'll call it eshop-domain.xml. There I will put this line of code. Context component scan. This one, forget about it. So I'll put this line of code here, context component scan. Okay. And then this is where I'll define my data sources. And this is where I'll define other beans I need to define that I'm using from Spring and other libraries. So I will keep this XML only for MVC, and now you can do an import. You can import, let's say you have 10 XMLs, okay, one per module, but you have one MVC, right? In MVC, you can import in one XML, you can import other XMLs. That is the most common approach. So, but you can take either of these approaches.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. Any other questions?
Yeah, I have a question.
Sure.
If we create a eShop servlet XML, so I don't needed a Spring config XML, right?
This is
Because
the Spring config XML.
yes,
This
okay.
is a
But
Spring config XML.
Spring config XML, this one is in source main and resources. Means this one is under source main resources, and this one is web INF
Right.
under web INF. Why?
Okay, that's a good point. You can put this guy, anywhere. Does it matter? Because
Okay.
in your web.xml, by default, by convention, again I'm going back to the convention, right? By
Mm-hmm.
convention, if you don't want to tell dispatch a servlet that, hey, here is my Spring config XML, by convention, your dispatch servlet expects you to put your servlet name -servlet.xml in the same location as your web.xml, meaning in webinf folder. Are you getting it, Madhavi?
Yes.
By
Yes.
convention. But you don't need to call this eShop servlet.xml. You can call it madhavi.xml, and you can definitely put it in source main resources. No problem. What do you have to do at that time? You just change this web.xml and tell, hey, I'm not using your by default convention, okay? I don't want your convention. No, I want flexibility. So I configured my own. So I'm telling you where I placed it. So override it. Like I just said, the technique that I just told you.
Yes.
Got it?
Okay. Yes, I
The
got it
same
now.
technique that I just told you. So that's it. Mention, it expects that particular file in the same location as your web.xml. In that case, you don't have to provide any of it. Your web.xml looks pretty clean. Okay, next.
Venkat, is there what is the added advantage going with the context component scan? And there is another one that I read. It's a context annotation slash config.
Context component scan. In fact, there
Does
was.
does it scan the whole package and the classes and everything?
Yes, it actually context component scan. It scans every single class within this package, and actually you can specify. Um, you can specify within this. You can specify your criteria also. See here, context exclude filter type equal to annotation expression. You can use your regular expression here, saying that, hey, I want every class to be scanned here except com.eshop.test package, let's say. I believe it's like that. Okay,
Okay.
so you can do this one with context component scan. I want everyone to be scanned. I want every class to be scanned for one of those annotations. And I want you to manage the lifecycle for except this guy. You can say exclude filters. Okay, and you can do include filters also. I'll say that, hey, please include only these types. Make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Venkat, these
Yeah.
exclusion and inclusions, must they exist?
It's not mandatory.
Okay.
It is not mandatory, and that's why you'll appreciate lot of sensible defaults provided by Spring. The intelligent defaults are sensible defaults. So if you don't need to configure it if you don't need to. That's the main goal of Spring. You don't need to configure it. You don't if you don't need to. Meaning you just follow the conventions and you don't need to. Okay. So by default, you don't need to provide it, Sean.
Yeah, that's okay.
Okay. Any other questions, guys?
Does the Spring support the validation also, like when we get some data back from the?
Yes. And we are going to look at it today. That's the topic for today.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, let's jump in. Now, what I want to do is that, hey, what is the last Java project that I checked in? What's the project that I checked in?
eShop 5 2015.
Let
eShop
me,
5 2015.
Shop 5 underscore 2015.
2015.
oh boy, eShop 5 underscore 2015, huh? That's
Yes.
what it is. Okay.
Yes.
eShop 5 underscore 2015. So if I get that, I'll get the previous one. So this one I don't need it, right? eShop underscore Spring MVC, I'm hoping. Or I'll close this guy. No big deal. This is the one. Okay, I'll leave it as is, and then we will add validations to this guy. I think that's fair. eShop 5 underscore 2015. So let me call this guy as eShop 6
Venkat,
2015.
there's already an eShop 6.
Oh, there is?
I'm seeing that.
But there is a 2015, no. eShop
not
6 to
2015.
2015.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
Yeah,
eShop 6.
eShop 6.
2015 is, yeah, 2015. No.
So that's good, right?
Yeah.
I know I have to clean up all of these guys so that, over the batches, I'll clean up in the website. I mean, mainly I have to clean up in my subversion repository. eShop 6 2015. Keep all of these. I mean, I'm going to keep anyway the projects. You will use, I'm sure, even after you join, companies. I'm sure you'll use my code base more than my videos. I can tell you that, because videos probably you will not be able to access them in companies, but code base you can. I use it. I use myself, a lot of times. So
What do? You take your directory and keep it in, copy it in the company's directory and import it over there in your Eclipse, right?
nope,
Your company?
that's not what I do. What I do is today, I think yesterday, we were working on some web service things, and I don't remember the syntax. I don't know how to do that WS import exactly in Maven, so I just went to my own this one and then looked at my sample And here I was like looking at it. Oh, this is what I did it. Okay. Not here, actually. It's in the consumer area. So I always use it. I myself use this, all of my source code. I always use it. If I have to give any demo on RESTful web services, let's say okay, it happened once, and then I don't do research again. I just have to, because we don't remember the syntax, right? No, mainly the syntactical things. Concept is different. Concept we all have to know, but the syntax we can't remember everything. So what's the problem here? Oh, it's because of probably Maven dependency. Update projects.
Venkat, I noticed one thing yesterday. That is, if any jar file is being referred from a project and that project is closed, then it gives red X.
Right.
I did not know that fact.
Oh yeah.
I mean,
because,
is it a well-known fact?
Oh, that's absolutely. And if you don't want to do it that way, then you have to do it as an external dependency. You can do it. You can do it as an external dependency. You know what I'm saying? Configure build path here, right?
Libraries.
Build path entry is missing. eShop 6 source test. Okay, that's fine. Okay, so look at it. So if I add any jars, right? Let's say if I add a jar here. So see here, if I'm adding from the project within Eclipse, that means it has to be open. Okay, so you can add any. Let's say target. Nope. Where do I have? If I add this one, I mean any jar file, right? I don't have jar file, unfortunately. But if you don't want to do that, then go for add external jars. And then here, you go to the same location now. Go to D, Java training, projects. Now you go to eShop 2015, you know what I'm saying? If you do that way, now you are...
But that will make a real copy, right?
It's only reference. No, it's only reference. But it has nothing to do with Eclipse now. You're actually going to the file system.
Directory. C drive, yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Both have.
Okay,
I wouldn't recommend by any means, but it's just I just gave you an option. That's all. Hey everybody. So now we got this one. Let's remove this guy, and then run on server.
Acha, see, since you're doing run on server, besides, see, run on server is really going to deploy it and then run it. But is there any way of just deploying it without running? There are two methods actually. One is this, which we are always doing.
Right.
But there is a way of just deploying without running.
What happens if you I mean, there are a couple of ways at least. Stop, right?
Yeah.
Has been more, yeah. Okay. See, I dragged and dropped it. I didn't stop this.
Drag and drop it. I tried to drag drop, it doesn't work. I don't know.
Yep, it works.
Okay.
Like that. It's been modified. Yes. Could not save because the file has been okay.
Okay, let me try right now.
Boy. Okay. So let's look at this guy. It's called eShop 6. Okay. Let me look at the POM XML and see artifact ID, what it's called as. Yep, eShop 6. And then what's the final name? eShop 6. Okay. It's all good. And then I want to run this guy quickly before we Okay, so it's the same. Add to cart. Oops. Oh, it's all eShop 5. I don't want to change all the references right now, so rather I'll change this guy to eShop 5, which is no big deal, I think.
I think you didn't change it to eShop 5. You changed eShop 5. Venkat.
Oh, thank you. There is a typo. Okay. Should work. Okay. We did all of this. If you're done shopping, please go there. First timer, please click here. Let's put the validation here. Meaning first name, last name, address, city, state, zip code, and then I'll say click on add a customer, and it's saying insert into customer values. So it tried inserting everything null, 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 null. That doesn't make sense, right? So your first name can be null, last name can be null, address can be null, address 1 cannot be null, address 2, if you have address 2, that can be null, but city, zip code can be null. Probably address, city, and state, let's say they are optional. They can be null, but zip code and first name, last name, and address, first name, last name, and zip code, they can't be null. And then also, first name should only take characters. Nobody should say Venkat 123 like that. So we want to put only the characters there. And then zip code should only have 5 characters, and it should only have digits, etc. Okay. So how can we do this validation? There are 2 kinds of validation that you typically do it. Okay. One is called, oops, I wanted to open that guy, but that's fine. So there are typically 2 kinds of validations. So from browser, now request goes to server, right? There are definitely validations on the client side itself, meaning before you submit itself, you can use something called JavaScript. Okay, this is one of the front-end technologies. Front-end has 3, right? HTML, 3 technologies: HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. HTML is all about content. CSS is all about fanciness, decoration, and JavaScript is all about bringing dynamism to your content. So, using JavaScript, you can do the validation here itself. You don't want to let the form be submitted when the most crucial fields are blank. In that case, you can do the validation on the browser itself. So you can do the validation here saying that your browser, wherever it is running, this one may be deployed in Amazon Web Services, which is in California. Okay, like Amazon.com, right? But we are all using our own browsers, right, to shop in Amazon. And then when you submit here, you can fire up the validation on your own browsers itself. You can definitely fire up in your own browser itself saying that, hey, sorry, you can't submit the form without having proper first name, proper last name. That is one kind of validation. This is called client side validation. This is called client side validation. And the other kind of validation is server side validation. This is where once the form is submitted to the server, you want to make sure that the whole form is good. All the fields are accurate before you try to submit into the database. You don't want to do now whatever you did just now. You don't want that to happen in the real world. Your first name is blank, last name is blank, address is blank, everything is blank, but you saved a customer into the database. It's meaningless, right? So today we are talking about the validation on the server side. Okay, later we'll talk about, when we talk about the JavaScript and the front-end technologies, we'll talk about the client-side validation. But we're talking about the server-side validation. Once the form is submitted to your dispatcher servlet, before it gives to your, before the model attribute, the model object is given to your web controller, your dispatcher servlet itself can validate the whole form. It can validate the whole form. And then when it gives the model to your web controller, it will also give you an object that's going to tell you whether the validation is successful or not, including all the errors. So your dispatcher servlet will do it. All you need to do is, there are a couple of ways of doing it, but one of the most popular way and also the simplistic way is that your model object, in your model object, you just somehow tell, okay, you just say that which fields need which validation, what kind of validation. Let's say first name can only take characters. Let's say zip code must be 5 characters, no, not more than 5, not less than 5, absolutely 5. Okay, so you put all of the validation on your model object itself, and then your dispatcher servlet is going to perform the validation. Actually, dispatcher servlet or Spring MVC is so flexible, is so configurable that you can provide your own validation framework. You can do your own validation, or you can plug in a third-party validators, and they will validate. Dispatcher servlet will call them, validates your form, and then all the errors that particular validation framework sends, it will give you back to the JSP page. And in JSP page, you just render them. You just show those error messages. That's all. So my point is that, so from browser, your dispatcher servlet takes it, your dispatcher servlet, takes a request, and then it gives it to your controller, right? So my point is that before model gets passed to your controller, your dispatcher servlet is going to call the validator. So it's going to call the validator. And then your dispatcher servlet is going to call the validator, gets any errors that it throws. All the validator has to do it. It's a separate validator that is validator's responsibility. So validator's responsibility is to validate your object. Its dispatcher servlet is going to populate into model and then kick off the validator, and validator is going to validate it. And then it gives you all the errors. Now, the dispatcher servlet, when it gives the model object to your controller, it not only gives model, but it also gives you another object which has all the errors of the validation. Now it's up to you. You can make the call. If it has any errors, you can throw it back to the same page. If there are no errors, then you can proceed calling your service layer. So before calling the service layer, as soon as your controller's method is called, your dispatcher servlet is going to give you the model object. In addition to that, it's going to give you an object called binding result. It's an interface actually. It's going to give you an object of type binding result. This binding result will contain all the errors coming from the validator. Using the binding result, you can check if there are any errors or not. If there are any errors in controller, you can send it back to the same page. If there are no errors, then you can proceed calling the service layer. Agree? Is everybody on the same page? Everyone understood the concept? That is a simple concept.
Yes.
So by the time you are in your method of the controller, your validation has already been finished. Validation has been done by your validator. But who called that validator? Dispatcher servlet called the validator. Your form validation has already been done. Okay? And then it's giving you the model and the binding result, which contains all the errors. All you have to do is you just make the decision. In your controller, you make the decision. Hey, I have these errors. So where do I now take the user to? I'll say that, okay, this guy has to go to the same page. Then I'll tell dispatcher servlet, can you please take this guy to the same page where this guy got from? This guy is crazy. He submitted an empty form. No first name, no last name. There's no reason for me to submit. There's no reason for me to send it to service class. So can you please slap him? Yes, dispatcher servlet will do that. So your validation has essentially three components. One is validator, meaning how does this validator work? How do you plug in this validator? Okay, what are all the validation frameworks we have it? Or what are the options we have it? Or how can we plug that in into Spring MVC is one concept. When I get the binding result, I have to make the decision. That's the second point. And now, if I decide that, and in controller, I'll say that if binding result has errors, I'll say, hey, dispatcher servlet, can you please forward to this error page or the same page? Then it's going to put your dispatcher servlet is going to put all those errors that it got from the binding result into request scope. So in your JSP, you can nicely print all those error messages. That's the beauty. So all the three parts, right? Let's take one part at a time. Any questions at this point? Before I zooming into each part? Anybody? Now, the first step is the real validation, right? One of the popular ways of doing the validation with Spring MVC is by using, there is a special API called Java Bean Validation Framework, or Java Bean Validation API. So you have your model, right? Like your customer.java. Okay, let's go to customer.java. In your customer, what you can do is, let's say private string first name. This Java Bean validation framework provides bunch of annotations. You just annotate on your field that it's not empty, not now, or it can take a minimum of 6 characters. It can take maximum of 18 characters, and it can only take characters. It can only take numbers. All of those rules you can put it using these simple annotations. You can say at not now. Okay, meaning it can be now. And then you can say at not blank. It can be blank. At not empty. It can be empty. And you can say at min. You can specify what's the minimum length of that particular field. You can say at max, what's the maximum length of that particular field. You can do all of this. You can provide the complete regular expression. There is a concept called regular expression. Regular expression is it's a subject by itself. It's a simple concept by itself. You can use a regular expression. You just provide some expression. You just say that, hey, I only take the characters A to Z and capital A to capital Z. That's it. I do not take anything more than that. And then that regular expression will be evaluated and it will throw error. So this is just an API. This Java validation framework is just an API. API is always nothing. I mean, it's good. It provides you a standard, right? But who provides the implementation? Somebody has to validate it, right? Somebody has to validate this. So who can validate this? There are implementations of Java Bean validation framework. And one of the most popular implementation is from Hibernate. And Hibernate has an implementation called Hibernate Validator. Hibernate Validator. So you need, essentially, you need two dependencies. You have two dependencies. One is your JavaX validation, your Java Bean validation framework, right? You need Java Bean validation framework jar file, and then also you need Hibernate validator. And to reiterate my point, Hibernate validation implements the API from Java Bean validation. So Java Bean validation says that, hey, there is an annotation called at min. Okay, you can provide your minimum length using annotation called at min. Okay, so who is doing the actual dirty work of checking if this field has at min or not? And then if so, I have to enforce this validation. Who is doing all that work? The implementation. That implementation is Hibernate validation. So Hibernate validation framework is the most popular one. It's number one. We all use it on a day-to-day basis. So that's what we use it here. Okay, and I'll show you to do this. One of the three components. The first component, we are still with the first component. To be able to use the first component, we need two dependencies. One is the Java Bean validation, and the other one is Hibernate validator. So you can say dependencies. Let's look for, yep, look at it. So I have the JavaX validation. I want this JavaX validation, and then I want this Hibernate. I want this Hibernate validator. If you go to POM XML, this is how it looks. Instead of typing, I just use the shortcut. You can do this way also. If you already have these jar files in your local Maven repository. If not, you have to go get it. See here, you have two dependencies. One is, I'll stop the server at this point. One is JavaX validation API, and the other one is Hibernate validator. Hibernate validator implements this guy. So I'll show you what I'm talking about here. Look at it, the validation API. So in the validation API, there is a package called javax.validation. It has a bunch of classes, and then javax validation.constraints. This is what we use it. Look at it. Min.class, max.class, digits.class, now, not now. It should be now. It should not be now. Assert true, assert false, decimal max, decimal min, past, pattern. In this pattern, you can specify what pattern you want to enforce. You can use your whole regular expression. You can provide the size. Okay. So this can be this much size. Okay. These are all annotations. And then your Hibernate validator, this is what the Hibernate validator. This Hibernate validator implements this particular API. This is what is doing the actual job. Okay. I mean, we got the dependencies, we got it. But how do we use it? Well, using is very, 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 very simple. Let's go in this example. We have the customer object, right? Let's go there. Let's go to the customer.java. Now, it has a validation like at not now. You can say that, hey, this can be now. Okay? And then you can say that this can be null as well. First name and last name cannot be now. But there is a small gotcha with this at not null annotation. There is a gotcha with not with the annotation, but in the case of web applications, your browser sends your first name, last name, and everything as in. If you submit the empty form here, right? It is sending blank, 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 blank. It's never been now. It's actually empty string, right? So rather than checking for not now, you may want to check for not empty. But not empty is not provided by Java Bean validation framework. It's actually provided directly from Hibernate validator. So we depend on implementation. It's not a good idea, but in this case, we don't have an option, right? So we'll say that, hey, this is not empty, this is not empty. First name and last name are not empty. And you can also specify the message, meaning if at all the first name is now, then what do you want to display it to whoever the caller is? You can say that first name must not be null or something like that, right? Or cannot be null or cannot be empty, right? With the last name also, you say that last name cannot be empty. That's it. I know I'm not going into the details at this point, but let's understand all three parts of it. This is the first part. It is this simple to implement the validations. In fact, I came from struts background. We used to before Spring MVC and especially the Java Bean validation framework, we used to do all of these validations. We used to use various frameworks for that. It's a big XML, or I used to handwrite them in a method called validate in a class called action form. These are all struts. So, oh my God, we used to write like a big 50 to 100 lines of code just for the validation because we have a lot of fields. You have to check for every field, right? We used to write a lot of code. Now you don't have to. It is this simple. Okay. Now the immediate next step is, okay, we got the Hibernate validator. Okay, we are using the Java Bean validation framework that's implemented by Hibernate validator. We got it. But in Spring MVC, how does dispatch servlet knows to call the Hibernate validator? Well, you don't have to explicitly say that, hey, please call the Hibernate validator. Okay? All you have to tell in your Spring config XML, all you have to do here is MVC annotation driven. This configures the annotation driven Spring MVC controller programming model, meaning it promotes at controller, but we don't have to do this one just for at controller. But note that this tag works in Web MVC only, not in Portlet MVC. That's fine. So if you do this MVC annotation driven, it does few things under the hood. And it does few things. What are those few things? One of them is it will automatically identify, it will scan for any validators like Hibernate validator. It will automatically scan them and register them as validator so that your dispatcher servlet, when you make the request from the browser, your dispatcher servlet goes to the validator and get the form validated. But it does a lot more things. It provides good formatting ability for you can specify, hey, I want the date to be coming from in this format. All of that formatting can be done. In fact, they are called in Spring MVC world, it's a deep Spring MVC. It's called message converters. So those message converters, the default message converters are all switched on the moment you say that, hey, I'm using in a Spring MVC. I want you to use at controller annotations. I want you to switch on all the default what's that called? The default converters. Okay, and then I want you to switch on all the formatters. So, and then I want you to scan for any validators in the class path, any jars, any class, it will scan the whole class path and identify any validators and automatically register them so that your dispatcher servlet call them. So that single line of code, it does that much. Okay, all you have to do is just one line of code. You can blindly do it. Okay, that's all. This is how you tell that, okay, please look for the validator and register yourself. We're done with the first step. Now, what is the second step? Well, the second step is dispatcher servlet called the Hibernate validator and gave this customer object, and Hibernate validator gave these errors. If at all the first name is empty and the last name is empty, it gave you these messages. Okay. Now, your dispatcher servlet is going to give you an object called binding result. It is going to give you that. That binding result will have all these errors. All you have to do is take the binding result and check if it has any errors and forward it to the appropriate JSP page if it has. How do we do that? That is the second part. Okay. We are done with the first part. So we have two more parts to go on. So any questions at this point? I can take some questions.
Yeah, I have a question. Hello.
Yeah, go ahead, Madhavi.
Yeah, what is the difference between Java Bean validation and Hibernate validation?
Java Bean validation is an API. Hibernate validator is the implementation of the same API. One line answer, simple. When you put at not null here, or let's say that first name should be minimum of the first name should be minimum of 4 characters. I mean, can you imagine any first name with less than 4 characters? Probably maybe 3. Okay. And then you just say that first name must be at least 3 characters. Okay. Okay. See, this @min annotation has been provided by javax validation, javax.validation.constraints.min. Okay. That's all Java Bean validation says. Java Bean validation says that use @min to enforce the minimum length of the field. But who is doing the actual work? The actual work is done by the Hibernate validator. Did you get the point? Everybody?
Yes.
Everybody?
Means Hibernate is, Java Bean is implemented by the Hibernate, right?
Hibernate validator. Do not say Hibernate, because
Yeah.
Hibernate it does bigger things. Actually, Hibernate is famous for something else, which we'll talk later, called ORM, object relational mapping. But Hibernate has one of the components called Hibernate validator. So Hibernate validator implemented Java Bean validation API. Make sense? It is
Yes.
your JDBC interface is there. JDBC says that connection.create statement. Okay, connection is an interface, right? Connection.create statement. So who is doing actual dirty work? Your JDBC jar file, right? Right? OJDBC 6 has the implementation for all of that.
Yes.
Right? And your servlet spec. Okay, request.get session. So who is giving you the get session actually? Whoever implements the servlet API. Who is doing it? Your servlet container does that, right? Make sense now?
Yes.
Very good. So that's the difference. Now, any questions? Any other questions? Okay. Now, we have, let's say Hibernate validator did finish the validation and then it provided all of these error messages. Now, what dispatch servlet does is, it's in sign up controller, right? So when you call this HTTP post in sign up, we are getting the whole fully populated customer object. This is model. So we are getting the whole model, but also, okay, you can expect another interface called binding result. you can expect binding result. So your dispatch servlet will give you the binding result just by saying that, hey, Spring MVC, I need binding result. How do you say I need binding result? By putting this as a method argument, right? That's all. And dispatch servlet calls the Hibernate validator, gives this customer, your customer will be fully validated. If at all any of these errors come in, all of those errors will be populated into this binding result object. Now you make the call. Don't call the service.add directly if binding result has any errors. So what you do is, if binding result has a method called has errors. Okay, so if at all any errors are there, then what do you want to do? Do you want to call the service.add? No. What do you want to do? Anyone? Binding result has errors. Then where do you want to, what do you want to do here? What do you want me to write here? Anyone?
We will go in a JSP page.
Yes, which
Go
JSP
back
page?
in error JSP. If there is an error JSP.
Are you sure? You
Or
want
maybe
to,
we can just post it to the same JSP.
exactly. If we send it to error JSP, he will not get chance to make corrections, right?
Right.
We want to slap him and say that, hey, this is bad, and we have to take him to the same page. What is that same page? Here. Sorry, this guy. Right?
Sign up.
Your sign up page. So you want to
Sign up
take him to the sign up page if there are any errors. All you are doing is making the decision. But what dispatch servlet is doing is, it is giving you the picture. Hey dude, I'm giving you the whole picture of the binding result. It has errors, it has everything. Whatever you want to do it, I don't care. You can ignore. If you choose to ignore, okay, that's your problem. That's not mine. I'm giving it to you. I call the Hibernate validator. I got this validation done. I'm giving you the binding result, which has all the information about the errors. You make the call, whatever you want to do it. Now, what we are doing is, if it has errors, we are sending him back to the same page. Otherwise, now we will, if there are no errors, then we will call the actual service.add. Now it will insert the actual customer information into the database, and then we'll send him to the login page. Make sense? That's it. This is the second part of validation framework. Any questions? Who populates this binding result with the appropriate errors? Who populates the binding result with the appropriate all the errors, all of these errors? Who populates it? I'm sorry, I don't mean to click that. I want to click this guy. So who populates that binding result with all of these error messages? Who populates it?
Validation form.
No.
Hibernate
Hibernate
validator.
Validator gives
Hibernate,
all the
yeah.
errors, but this binding result is actually org Spring Framework validation dot binding result. It's actually provided by the dispatcher servlet. By calling this sign up, at the time of sign up, it's giving you the fully loaded form, whatever the form that's submitted by the user, and it's also giving all the errors. Dispatcher servlet is giving you that. Who calls this sign up method, by the way? Dispatcher servlet does, right? That's it. The second portion is done. Now, can anyone tell me what's the third portion? We got the errors from here. Hibernate validator gave us the errors, and those errors have been translated into binding result object, and we got all of them. Okay, if there are any errors, we are sending them to the same page. What is the last step? We need to show the errors to the users, right? We need to show the errors to the users, right? You know what it does? What dispatcher servlet does is, before it forwards to this guy, if there are any errors, it will put all of those errors into request scope. it puts all of those errors into request scope. So all you need to do in your JSP page is you don't need to get those errors and display from the request scope. You don't need to do that. They gave a tag library, a tag inside the tag library for you. So we have the tag library called SF, right? This SF form here, they provided a tag called SF:errors. See here, renders field errors in an HTML span tag. So it will renders all the errors that we got it. So here, it can take another argument called path. Path to errors object for data binding, meaning, hey, which errors do you want me to show? Meaning, is it first name? If you say first name, then it will display all the errors of the first name. Okay? It will display all the errors of the first name only. If you say last name, it will display all the errors of last name only. But if you say star, then it will display all the fields error messages. Okay, then you do a simple break. It will display automatically. You don't need to do anything. That's it. Just another one-liner here. It displays the error messages nicely. Any questions? This is the third step. The first step is the actual validation. The second step is giving those errors to controllers so that you can make the call, how to forward or where to forward. The third step is showing those errors actually. Okay, now okay, and now let's try to go add customer. Oops. Oh, your Hibernate validator did not kick in, right? Because it just went there. So your Hibernate validator did not kick in. So nothing happened really. So let's take a look at it. Let's take a look at it. We have the MVC annotation driven component scan, everything. And then we have the validations. Excellent. I'll just do a one simple clean and then restart the server before I try to do anything.
Venkat, it seems here is an error. Did you see that?
It seems what?
There is an error in the log, the console. Would you please?
Oh, okay. Let's take a look at it. Let me clear this guy and then let's start. And then let's observe. Okay. It's looking good. Sure, I'm done. Sure, I'm done. Okay, so your Hibernate validator did not kick in, right?
Your eShop 6, right? This one is.
Yes. Let's debug what's going on, right? Do you all know how to debug? So your sign up controller, let's go here.
can we give here
Hey,
valid
definitely we
something?
got the errors. Oh, no. It binding result itself actually. Yep. Your binding result itself did not kick in. So let's go. Sure. So it went to, yeah, this kind of, yeah. Let's take a look at the binding result.
Oh, there is a customer, so can we give the @valid or
No,
something? No?
no. Oh, yes, yes. Yeah. Ah, I thought I did that. I'm sorry. Actually, good catch. Good catch. Thank you. So, in three parts, right? The first step is the actual validation here. And the second part is, I mean, we put the validations here. And the second step is your validator will be called by your dispatcher servlet and gives you the binding result. It will only kick off Hibernate validator or any other validator if you say that I want this to be validated. You need to explicitly say that. How do you say that? There is an annotation called @valid. So you say that @valid, javax.validation.valid. If you say that, then you say that, okay, please, then dispatcher servlet gives this customer object to the Hibernate validator and get it validated and transform all those errors and populate them into binding result. Now it gives you the fully populated binding result. Thank you. That's a very good catch. I thought I did that. Everybody got this one? You have to, this is like your validation equal to true. Okay, hey, I want my form to be validated before calling the sign up and give me the customer. Please do that. That's what we are saying. Okay. Oh, I stopped the server. Super. Let's take a look at it. Yeah, I want to show up more. Sure. See that? Now it looked at this one. It looked at valid annotation, and dispatcher servlet understands that, okay, this guy wants me to validate this model before I give it to him. Okay, now I'll give it. I will call the Hibernate validator and I'll give this model to Hibernate validator, and Hibernate validator it will give all the errors, and I'll populate all those errors to binding result. And he made the decision that he had binding result has errors, so I'm throwing it to the same page. Okay, and in the JSP page sign up.jsp, in the JSP page we said that, hey, please display all the errors. See here, path equal to start. If I had put first name there, then it would have displayed only two. First name cannot be empty and first name must be at least 3 characters. Here, I'm displaying all the error messages. But typically, error messages are in red color, right? So we can do, I think this one, SF errors, has a way. You can provide the CSS style here, or you can provide the CSS class here. You can inline. You can say that you can do the total color equal to red, and then you can do something like font size, something like 14 pixels, etc. Okay, and then it will display the same errors in a different. Yep, first name cannot be empty, first name must be at least 3 characters, last name cannot be empty. See that? And now, but this is not generally a good practice. We put it in a separate CSS file, right? If not, at least you put it in your JSP page itself. You can do something like this, and here you can define a a class, something like you can define a CSS class here. You just say something like error or ABCD, whatever the class is. We didn't talk about this one. We'll talk about what is the CSS class when we talk about the front end class. I'll defer that. All we do is whatever we did here, we'll just do it here. That's it. Color equal to red, font size equal to blah, and then font weight, if you want to say. What are the options? Normal, bold, bolder, lighter. I'll say bolder. Okay, and then I'll say that, hey, please use this class. Now I don't say CSS style, I rather say that CSS class, like that. That's it. Now do the same thing. Okay, check that the corresponding file exists with your web application archive /webinf/JSP. What happened? Okay, file name cannot be empty. File name must be at least 3 characters. Last name cannot be empty. If 14 pixel is not enough, I think that's enough. I think that's enough. Yeah. Okay. And if you want, you can take another approach. Like all the first name related errors should be, let's say, for some reason. I mean, some websites we see this, right? SF errors path equal to first name. Yes. CSS class equal to error. All the first name should be here. First name errors should be here. And then all the last name should be, sorry, wrong press. Last name should be directly above last name. Okay, I'll do that one and see. I'll show you how it looks. Okay, let's reload this guy. Okay, look at it. Now we don't have a proper break, so we'll put a break here, and then we'll put a break here. Okay, reload. Yeah. So all the first name related errors are shown here. First name must be at least 3 characters. First name cannot be empty. And all the last name related errors are shown here. Last name cannot be empty. And if you have something like address, I know this is not looking great. Actually, we need to change some styling. We need to give some spacing, styling. Yeah, we'll improve that. We'll definitely improve that. But at this point, which one do you like? I like star one. What do you guys think? But you can definitely do that. You can give the appropriate path. If you give star, then it dumps all the error messages. That's all I wanted to say. I think I like this one better. Okay, reload. Reload. Like that. I like that one better. Everyone likes it? But you say now, let's say first name, right? First name, I'll say T. See that? Now, first name, that first name cannot be empty is gone now. Now, let's say last name. Last name cannot be empty is gone. Okay. And then first name must be 3 characters. Okay. Then Ted. Must be at least 3 characters. Okay. The minimum of 3 characters. E. Something wrong? It's always throwing error. Come on.
refresh that?
No, it's failing here, right? At min, value equal to 3. At min, yeah, value equal to 3. I think that's reasonable. Is it not being populated by any chance? I don't think so. Yeah. I don't like it. Why is that? Why is that? Let's go. Check that. Okay.
Venkat, why are those console messages coming in the bottom?
This console? Logging, right?
The console message is in the bottom, yeah. In the background.
Yeah, it's logging the stuff, right?
Oh,
As you
okay.
do the things.
Did you have to switch on anything? Because I don't get that when I run any program. Do I get that? I don't remember.
Oh yeah. First name must be. This is funny. Is it possible? We are. Okay, let's do a maximum of. Sorry. Groups message payload value equal to maximum of 10. Message equal to first name cannot exceed 10 characters, right? Like that. Let's take this guy out for a second. Okay. Let's reload the page. Okay, let's reload the page. Sure. See that it is actually, it's doing all the time. Huh? Is it possible we are not using the and
So means in one field we can give the many constants.
Can you just give just like that at max only the number?
Value.
That's the problem.
That's what I am trying, but it's the same as the other one. Okay, reload guy. Okay. Okay, why are you actually? Your first name cannot be empty, that's fine. And at max 10, is it possible something is going on?
Can you give only one constant? Max value equal to 10.
Oh, you mean one constraint?
Yeah.
Let's try. Maybe that works. Okay. So, okay, last name cannot be empty. Okay, last name is good. So, are you saying?
Venkat, it could probably be with annotation. that much thing, or it could be something
Let's say,
else.
let's read.
Yeah. Yes, sorry. Just repeat.
Let's read
Maybe it applies for all the fields out below it.
Java bean validation. At not null, at size. Oh, at size. I don't know what is min. Let's do
I
That
think we
could be
mentioned minimum and maximum.
at size. Okay, let's do at size min equal to 3, max equal to whatever our database takes it, right?
And
And then message equal to your first name must be 3 characters minimum and max of 30, right?
And also add the at not null.
Absolutely. At not yeah, not null doesn't mean much actually. So at not blank, let's see. I'm surprised. Yep, may not be empty is that not thingy. So okay, let's say test. Oh, it worked now. But if I do just 2, then it's saying 3 characters minimum and maximum of 30 characters. Let's say this is good. Last name cannot be empty, and now last name, then it's going to insert it nicely. Yep, it's going to insert it nicely. I don't know why at min and max did not work. I'll go check. I'll check on that, but that's the concept, right? And then the another interesting part is the pattern for especially for the zip code, right? You can use that regex, something like zip code. We said it's not, it can be blank, so we'll say not empty, right? And then we have to say the message equal to zip code cannot be blank, right? And then you can use something like we can use let's go to our own Maven library and then validation API pattern at pattern. So you can use at not empty and then you can use at pattern. And in pattern, you can specify something like a regular expression. So you can say that regular expression, and then you can say message equal to zip can only take numbers, right? I mean, is that true in US? I think that is right. That is true in US that it only takes numbers. And then the regular expression for this guy is, you know, any character between 0 and 9 and any number of times. Okay, that's the regular expression. This is called regular expression. So you can give an expression and it evaluates to that expression. So now you can check that guy. Okay, zip code cannot be blank. Let's say that zip code blah. Zip can only take numbers. Look at it. So if you try West 1, 2, 3, something like that, and then it says, but if you do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, then it's going to allow. Very good. Got it? So it's that simple. And that's about the validation. It's very, very, very simple. Especially now. I mean, it used to be very complicated when we did it. Back then, it's good. I don't know. Until recently, the validation was pretty. It's never challenging, but it's laborious. That's what I don't like. If it involves some thinking, I like it. I mean, but if it does not involve any thinking, but you need to write hundreds of lines of code just for nothing, that's never interesting, right? But here, it's pretty one line of annotation. See, it's pretty simple. Okay, and then if you say that your first name can only take the characters, then you can use again pattern here. You can say that you can take pattern. The proper pattern, yes, JavaX validation pattern, and then we can use regular expression equal to, we can say that A to Z lower cases and also from uppercase to uppercase Z. That's all. It cannot take, it has to be every single character has to be between small a to small z, or big A to big Z, and then any number of characters. So every character should be following this one. That star means that.
Venkat, between small a and capital, sorry, right after small z, does capital A begin? Because the hyphen between small z and capital A may include some other things. See, in grep, for instance, what we do is we put, oh, that's for one character. Okay, for all. Okay, between small z and capital A, if there is something else.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Go ahead and change it. No, this is just an example.
Just okay.
This is just an example. You can go bonkers with it, right?
Yeah.
You can.
Sometimes I
regular expression, I can't rate myself 1 out of 10. So I wanted to. I want to put that assumption in your heads. Okay. If you don't know, I'm actually reading out of paper and typed this one. So I don't know even this one. So I'm that bad in regular expression. But there are a lot of regular expression. Go online and then say regular expression tester, regular expression. What do you call regular expression cross puzzle? There are a lot of you just insert your regular expression here, okay, and then now enter your test string here. See here, it is telling you that it's bad. This 1, 2, 3 is bad. This one matched, but this one did not match it, is what it's telling you. So clearly. So see here, match a single character present in the list below. Go find it. This is a regular expression.
Okay, yeah, we don't have to worry about it too much now. That's okay. I agree with you.
Any questions? Yeah, those were enjoyable, Sean. Any questions from anyone? If not, then that's all I have for today. I have something else, but we'll check in the next class. I wanted to cover more, but not today. Okay. Have a good night, everybody.